I sat quietly in my usual seat at the Willow Table, a quaint little brunch cafe tucked in the heart of downtown Austin. My chai latte had gone cold, but I kept stirring it out of habit, just something to focus on while my family buzzed around me. The spotlight, as always, was on my older sister Melanie. She flipped her hair over her shoulder, the oversized sunglasses perched on her head catching the morning sun. "I mean, honestly," she said, laughing loud enough for the whole patio to hear, "who still freelances at 35? That's not a career, it's a hobby." No one laughed, just her. Melanie always found herself entertaining. I didn't flinch, just kept my eyes on my cup, watching the foam dissolve. My mom shifted awkwardly and muttered, "Melanie, that's not necessary." But Melanie just shrugged. To her, silence equaled surrender. My dad tried to comment on the avocado toast, but the moment had already settled like fog over the table. They've always mistaken my quiet for passivity, but what they didn't realize is that silence is where I do my best work. For years, while they dismissed me as the artsy one, I was building a business behind the scenes. At 28, I sat in a co-working space in East Austin with Nico, my college roommate, writing the first algorithms for what would become PulsePath, a behavioral data platform now used by Fortune 500 brands and public institutions alike. Now at 35, I'm the CTO and silent co-founder of a company worth over $100 million, 0 cents. I chose to remain behind the scenes, no LinkedIn profile, no media interviews, no name on the press releases. But my name does appear in the hiring database, and last week it showed up again, on a resume submitted for an entry-level PR role, submitted by none other than Melanie Crawford. I looked up for the first time that morning just as Melanie smirked and said, "Honestly, I'm thinking of applying to this up-and-coming tech firm, something called PulsePath. I hear they're going places." I smiled, stirred my cup one last time. "They are," I said, "they really are." Then I looked back down, careful not to let the flicker of amusement in my eyes show. Melanie kept talking. "I already applied," she said with a casual wave of her mimosa. "If they bring me in, I'll whip their PR budget into shape faster than anyone in that place. And if they don't hire me," she shrugged, "their loss." I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from laughing. That line, so bold, so smug, was straight out of the script she used to throw at me every Thanksgiving. How I'd never amount to anything hiding behind a screen. How I was wasting my prime years chasing digital shadows. And now, she's walking straight into the empire I built in those same shadows. But I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I'd learned that truth, when timed right, has its own volume. I still remember my 12th birthday. The candles were lit, everyone was halfway through the birthday song when Melanie burst in, waving a first-place cheer trophy. "Our superstar just won regionals," my mom beamed, pulling her into a proud hug. I stood behind my untouched cake, still smiling, but no one asked me to blow out the candles. No one asked what I wished for. I carried my unopened gifts upstairs, pulled out the old Dell laptop Dad gave me, and went back to tweaking my first video game mod. Even as a kid, I found magic in what bored other people. I'd spent hours writing basic code, designing graphics, testing logic. My mom used to say, "Julia disappears when she's working." My dad would chuckle, "In this house, one's a spotlight and one's a circuit board." No mystery who was which. Melanie studied media and dabbled in theater. She became a minor local personality, colorful, chaotic, camera-ready. I earned a full ride to Texas Institute of Technology, but no one came to my graduation. They were hosting a launch party for Melanie's fashion collab that day. I didn't mind. I was already planning something bigger. By 29, Nico and I had landed a government pilot contract. By 32, PulsePath was processing real-time behavior data for major clients in retail and healthcare. As of last quarter, we're worth over $100 million, 0 cents. I hold 48% ownership. And guess who's about to walk into the interview room next week? Melanie Crawford, PR hopeful. My older sister. Unaware that I'm the one who signs off on every single hire. But ask anyone on the street, they'd only know Nico Alvarez. As for Julia Crawford, she never appeared in a headline. And that's exactly how I wanted it. I never craved photo ops, champagne galas, or awkward boardroom applause. I wanted to build tools that solved real problems, systems that helped real people. That was always enough for me. As for Melanie, after her fashion label tanked due to overspending and unpaid vendors, she quietly returned to the world of marketing at a mid-size agency. Until the agency shut down. Now she's pinning her hopes on a new position she doesn't even realize I created. I'm not sure if Melanie will ever see me as more than the quiet sister with a screen addiction. But now, she's about to walk into a company where the workflows, brand pillars, and reporting tools all have my fingerprints on them. And I can't help but wonder, when she sees the name Julia Crawford in the footer of her onboarding documents or budget projections, will she connect the dots? Or will she still believe I'm just some footnote to her spotlight life, a flicker she long outshined? Part of me hopes she never finds out. Another part wants to see her expression when it finally hits. I don't need her approval, but I do want her respect. That night, back in my apartment on the 18th floor overlooking South Congress Avenue, the Austin skyline shimmered beneath a light spring haze. I opened my laptop and logged into PulsePath's admin panel. A familiar dashboard greeted me. Rows of approvals, budgets, system updates. The first item at the top. HR recommended candidate. Melanie Crawford. My breath caught for half a second. Her photo popped up on screen. Confident smile, beige blazer, resume polished within an inch of its life. I read the HR note. Strong communication, good presence, solid analytical background. Recommending her for second round interview. I didn't type a word. Just clicked the 3 dots in the top corner. Forward, copy, promote, approve. I clicked approve. She got the job. No one else at PulsePath knows who I really am. Nico and I made that pact years ago. His face is on everything, from Forbes features to keynote panels. Mine? Mine stays out of the spotlight. Not because I'm hiding, but because I'm free. Behind the title Senior Technical Advisor, I run 48% of this company. Quietly, precisely, and powerfully. Nico always respected my choice, never once let my name slip to employees or the press. For a long time, I questioned whether staying hidden was smart or cowardly. But watching Melanie walk into the very world I'd quietly built, I realized silence wasn't just strategic, it made moments like this worth it. On her first day, I stayed home exactly as planned. Still, I pulled up PulsePath's internal security cam feed, something only 3 people in the company knew I personally engineered. From a tucked-away angle in the break room on the 9th floor, I saw her standing near the espresso machine. Her eyes flicked across the wall-mounted digital dashboard, which cycled through live project milestones and AI model performance stats. "This is the company that brought me on," she told someone nearby with pride in her voice. "The founders are ghosts. Nobody's even seen the second one." Her colleague laughed. "People say it's just a legal name, like a shadow partner." I smiled. I'd heard that theory before. Later that afternoon, Nico called me over video. He leaned back in his chair, nursing a cup of coffee. "She's off to a good start," he said, confident, maybe a little theatrical, but sharp. "You still okay with this, Julia?" "She doesn't know. Not even close." "For now, I want it that way," I replied. "Let's just observe. If she thrives, she earns it. If not, the truth will sort itself out." Because this wasn't about revenge. I didn't want Melanie to fail. I didn't want an apology or a stage. I just wanted to see, who is she when there's no audience? A week went by, then another. I kept my routine. Late-night office visits, quiet budget approvals, strategy revisions in the glow of empty monitors. Until one Thursday, I was down in the basement server room checking the AI node logs when I heard sharp footsteps echo down the hall. I turned, and there she was. Melanie, frozen at the doorway, staring at me like she'd seen a glitch in the Matrix. "Julia," she asked slowly, "what are you doing down here? Only upper management has access." I gave a calm smile. "Guess I've got special access." She tilted her head, about to respond, when Nico stepped out from the adjacent room, holding a file. Hey Julia, you mind signing off on the new predictive pipeline draft before Friday? I took the folder. Look back. And Melanie? She didn't speak, but I saw it in her eyes. The story was starting to rewrite itself. And now I'd see? Would Melanie finally see me, or still believe I was nothing more than the harmless shadow she'd always dismissed? That morning, Austin was blanketed in a soft overcast, a spring drizzle tapping gently on my balcony windows. I had just signed off on our latest quarterly projections when my phone buzzed. It was Nico. Julia, he said, half amused, something interesting just happened. I think your sister's getting curious. At the same moment, an internal notification lit up my screen. Unrecognized signature. NS line found in budget file. Please confirm approving authority. My pulse steadied. So, it was time. Nearly 2 months had passed since Melanie joined PulsePath as a budget analyst. She'd made herself visible, charming teams, leading presentations, and offering bold ideas. I'd silently watched her proposals pass my desk. Quiet approvals, no interference. But she had started noticing inconsistencies. It began with a routine marketing file. Embedded at the bottom, a digital signature. Julia Crawford, NS. And beside it, an ID string associated with company founders. I knew Melanie well enough to know she wouldn't let that go. The next morning, I caught part of a conversation downstairs near the lobby cafe. Who's this NS person anyway? A junior staffer whispered, like a ghost, always signing the top-tier stuff. Probably just a legal placeholder, Melanie replied with a dry smile. I don't trust names without faces. I tightened my grip on my coffee. Don't trust, she'd find out soon enough. 3 days later, she submitted a formal request to accounting, asking for access to the full quarterly breakdown. With her clearance, she opened document after document until she hit the one. The budget frameworks, the system blueprints, financial core reports, and in every key section, my name. The same sister who once believed I was freeloading off Dad's kindness was now staring at my signature. The approvals she worked with daily. That afternoon, another notification hit. Internal access request. Melanie Crawford. Archive access. Founding records. She'd reached the master file. I pictured her alone in the dim light of her office, face lit by the soft glow of the screen, reading every word. Julia Crawford and Nico Alvarez. 50/50. Ownership. Role, Chief Technical Architect. No fanfare, just facts. Undeniable, unignorable. Miss Crawford. Her heart must have clenched. I knew her tells. When Melanie is truly shocked, she doesn't shout or spiral, she just stops. Her voice vanishes. Her posture stiffens, but her eyes ignite. Then comes the scramble, the internal storm. This can't be real. That same afternoon, I came into the office earlier than usual. I didn't tell Nico. I just needed to see it for myself. When I walked into the 9th floor break room, she was there, alone. White-knuckled grip on the marble counter, staring at a printout, the corner still curling from the heat of the printer. I stepped in quietly. You all right? I asked. She turned slowly, her eyes locked on mine, furious, disoriented, and underneath it all, cracked wide open. Julia, she said tightly, you're the co-founder? I didn't rush the answer, I just nodded. How long? Since the beginning, I said evenly. Nico and I started PulsePath in a shared studio apartment above a barbecue joint in East Austin. You thought I was between jobs. She gave a dry, bitter laugh, more at herself than at me. So all this time, you've been signing my paycheck. I was reporting to you. Again, I nodded. Not out of pride, Mel, just doing my job. You're good at what you do. That's why you got promoted. If you weren't, I'd have handled it differently. She dropped her gaze to the floor. Silence. I reached into my folder and pulled out a proposal draft, a new initiative Nico and I had been planning, a tech training program for underserved communities in Texas. We're about to launch this, I said. I think you'd be a strong fit, if you're interested. She didn't take it, but she didn't walk away either. Something in her expression softened, a crease in her usual certainty, a question blooming behind her eyes. How many times have I misjudged my sister? A few weeks later, the 5-year PulsePath Gala was held in a towering glass venue overlooking Lady Bird Lake. Light from crystal chandeliers rippled like water across the marble floor. In the guest suite upstairs, I stood in front of the mirror. A long black dress, minimalist, refined. My frame carried the fatigue of late nights, quiet work, and years of being underestimated. Hair swept up, pale pink on the lips. I didn't want to stand out, but I'd outgrown the shadows. Nico knocked gently. "Ready, Julia?" I exhaled. "Not really, but I guess no one's ever really ready to step out of the dark." He smiled. "You're not stepping out, you're stepping up." We walked onto the stage from the wings just as the house lights dimmed. The MC had wrapped her introduction. And now, her voice rang out, "Please welcome the co-founders of PulsePath, Nico Alvarez and Julia Crawford." Applause erupted, bright, sharp, alive with curiosity. Every eye in the room turned as I stepped into the spotlight for the first time. Not as a ghost in the system, but as myself. I held my posture, steady and sure. And then I saw her. Melanie. She stood at the back, clutching a champagne flute she hadn't touched. Her expression, shocked, almost fragile, cut through the clamor. Her world, as she knew it, had just spun off its axis. I knew the feeling. I'd felt it too, on the day Nico and I secured our first 7-figure investment. That quiet, seismic shift when something others doubted becomes undeniably real. Nico spoke first. He shared our story, from a run-down studio above a BBQ joint to leading AI innovation across multiple industries. He talked about the bugs, the breakthroughs, and the nights we fell asleep at our keyboards. Then he passed the mic to me. The room stilled. I took a slow breath. "Hi everyone, I'm Julia Crawford, and I guess for many of you, this is the first time you're actually seeing me." A ripple of warm laughter rolled through the crowd. No mockery, just surprise wrapped in kindness. I continued, "I'm not much of a public speaker. Honestly, I never thought I'd be up here. But 5 years ago, Nico and I had two things: an idea and a belief that tech should be built on trust, not ego." My eyes swept the room, then paused on Melanie. She was still standing there, no longer holding her drink. Her arms hung at her sides, her gaze locked on me, like she was trying to reconcile the stranger on stage with the sister she thought she had pegged. "I know I haven't been the public face of this company," I said. "That was my decision, but today, I wanted to show up, not for recognition, but for gratitude." Applause swelled. I nodded once, then stepped back as the MC returned to close the ceremony. As the lights shifted to soft dinner ambiance, I moved toward the buffet, hoping for a quiet corner. But with every few steps, someone stopped me. "We thought you were a myth," one developer chuckled. "Didn't think you were real." I offered polite smiles, answered a few questions. But my eyes kept scanning the room. For one person. Where Melanie had stood was now empty. She had left. I didn't know when she slipped out or how much of my speech she'd actually heard, but something inside me shifted, just slightly. A quiet space opened up, where I'd hoped for a glance, a nod, even a small shared smile from someone who had known me before any of this. Before PulsePath. That night, back in my apartment, I kicked off my heels and collapsed into the corner of my sectional. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from colleagues, investors, old professors, even my parents. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart, you blew us away." But from Melanie? Nothing. Curious, I opened the company livestream archive, skipped ahead to my speech, and hovered over the play button. But I didn't hit it. I didn't need to hear my voice again. I just wanted to know, what had she seen? A stranger in the spotlight? Or the little sister she once said was book-smart but not built for the real world? 2 days later, I arrived early to the office, not for a meeting or approvals, just to finish something personal. I walked to the quiet 10th floor conference room, unlocked the drawer I kept for old things, and pulled out a small walnut box I'd had since college. Inside, I placed a navy linen notebook, a smooth black pen, and a simple card, Handwritten, no logo, no flourish. It took me over an hour to find the words. Not poetic, just real. Melanie, thank you for your work at PulsePath. You're sharp and I believe you'll go far. I'm proud to work alongside you, even if we began in silence. Julia. I folded the note, tucked it inside the notebook, and handed it to the internal delivery assistant, with one quiet instruction. Please give this to Melanie Crawford, no sender listed. I wasn't expecting a response. It wasn't an olive branch, it was a door. Quiet. Unlocked. She could walk through if she wanted. Or not. The rest of the week passed without a message, no email, no thank you. But I noticed the shift. Melanie no longer sat back with folded arms during meetings. She started taking notes, thorough ones. She raised smart questions, gave concise feedback. One afternoon, I lingered near the hallway as she pitched a cost-saving revision for our AI operations budget. Her tone? Calm. Her eyes focused, not defensive, just present. I didn't go in. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, and nodded. The next week, HR circulated a new proposal, submitted by Melanie Crawford, an internal mentorship program for junior employees with a focus on women in tech. She'd proposed that a portion of our corporate social responsibility budget be dedicated to hosting free weekend career workshops, sessions led by department heads covering real-world tech skills, interview prep, and mentorship. I read the proposal 3 times, slowly. Title, Touch the Screen, Touch the Future. And just below it, in subtle italics, inspired by the quiet mission of Julia Crawford. I set the file down and exhaled. A quiet breath. The kind that slips past years of tension you never realized you were holding. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the 9th floor pantry like I always did just before heading out. Melanie was there, pouring hot water into a glass teapot. When she turned and saw me, we both paused like two people meeting in a familiar space for the very first time. But this time, her gaze wasn't guarded. No walls, no edge. I was about to keep walking when she spoke, just above a whisper. The pen is beautiful and the notebook. I've started writing in it. I turned. I'm glad you liked it. She gave a small nod, as if that gesture cost her more than words. I don't think I ever really understood you, she said. Or maybe I just never tried. I smiled, just enough to show I heard her, but said nothing. There's something I need to say, she continued. You didn't have to give me a chance, but you did. And not once did you use it to make me feel small. Her voice tightened, but didn't waver. That says more about who you are than anything else I've ever said about you. And in that moment, I didn't see the teenager in glitter and ribbons, soaking up cheers at my expense. I saw Melanie, a woman finally willing to let go of the version of me she'd built in her head. I don't know if I can make it right, she said, but I'll try. I nodded. We don't need to keep score. We just start from here. We stood side by side for a while longer. No dramatic apologies, no performance. Just a shared pause in the hallway between who we were and who we could still become. And from that moment forward, things really did shift. Melanie stopped needing to be the loudest voice in the room. She began making room for others, mentoring interns, and taking on back-end work with quiet pride. And I stopped hiding. I led tech briefings, spoke at university panels, shared my story with young women in STEM. Not to show off, but to prove that you don't have to be seen to make something real. One Saturday, as I was heading out, I passed the wall of quarterly contributors. Melanie stood before it, her name at the top. She looked back at me, eyes soft, and gave a small nod. Thank you for not giving up on me. I smiled. We're just getting started, Melanie. That Sunday, our family met for brunch at our usual spot, Magnolia and Vine, tucked into a shady corner near Zilker Park in Austin. Same cozy charm as always. Dark walnut chairs, sunlight slipping through striped curtains, the scent of cinnamon waffles warming the air. But something felt different. I sat on the patio beneath hanging ivy, joined by Mom, Dad, Aunt June, Uncle Rick, and Melanie. She arrived 5 minutes late, but not with her usual dramatic flair. No bold colors or glittering heels this time. Just a clean white blouse, dark jeans, her hair tied back in a neat braid. No makeup. As she approached, her eyes flicked toward me, unsure, searching. Then she gave a simple nod. I nodded back. No words exchanged, but none were needed. Mom was in the middle of a story about her backyard succulents when Uncle Rick chuckled and turned to me. "So, Julia," he asked, "you still doing that little computer thing from home? Writing all that code stuff?" I smiled softly. I wasn't surprised. He still thought software development was some quirky hobby, like building robot toys in the garage. But before I could answer, Melanie set her coffee down with a gentle clink. "Uncle," she said clearly, "Julia's the smartest person I've ever known. Without her, I wouldn't be where I am today." The table went silent. Everyone looked at her. I tilted my head, curious. But Melanie didn't flinch. "I used to think being the loudest in the room meant I was the most confident," she continued, "but Julia taught me that real strength doesn't need applause." She looked directly at me. Her quiet doesn't mean she has nothing to say. It means she's choosing action over ego. That's something I'm still learning. Uncle Rick blinked, startled. Aunt June gave a small, proud nod. My mom reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. I didn't say a thing, I just looked at Melanie. And in that look, I saw everything she hadn't yet said out loud. Regret, respect, and something like healing. The conversation eventually drifted back to the weather and who was hosting Thanksgiving. But something real had happened. Something lasting. After the check came, and people started to gather their things, I stood to grab my bag. Melanie stepped closer, her jacket folded over her arm. She passed by, barely brushing my shoulder. Then, softly, "You don't have to forgive me, but I'll never be that person again." And I believed her. I turned to her, and for the first time in what felt like years, I gave her a real smile. "I know," I said softly, "and I never needed an apology." We walked out of Magnolia and Vine in silence, but this time there was no heaviness between us, just space, open and calm. What happened in the past hadn't been erased, but it no longer clung to me like a scar. That afternoon, I brewed a cup of lavender tea and opened my laptop. Outside my window, the waters of Lady Bird Lake shimmered under the spring light. Just as I took a sip, a message from Nico popped up. "Heard brunch wasn't a disaster today." I smiled. "Not a disaster, let's call it a new beginning. Because sometimes forgiveness doesn't come wrapped in speeches or flowers. Sometimes it shows up quietly when two people finally see each other, not through ego or resentment, but through shared, honest growth." Melanie and I will never be perfect sisters, but we're no longer opponents. We're two women, walking forward, no longer pretending we're fine or flawless, but trying. And to me, that's enough. That's everything. Her story and mine taught me something simple. Healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes silence says more than any apology ever could. What do you think about Julia and Melanie's journey? Can a late understanding be enough to mend what once felt broken? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more true, heartfelt family stories about growth, forgiveness, and finding your voice. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening truly. For years, I lived in the background, quietly building, quietly growing, quietly healing. I never asked for the spotlight, and honestly, I didn't think I needed it, but standing on that stage, hearing my sister speak up for me, watching her finally see me not as an afterthought but as her equal, that moment meant more than I ever expected. So, I want to ask something of you. If you connected with my journey, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told you were too quiet to lead, leave a comment below. Share your story. Tell me how you found your power or how you're still trying to. And if you're someone who's made mistakes in how you've treated someone, someone who stayed silent but never gave up, maybe now's the time to reach out. Growth doesn't always start with the right words. Sometimes it just takes presence, a nod, a door left open. For anyone watching who's struggling with family tension, Remember this. You don't need perfection. You just need a willingness to see and be seen. Healing is rarely loud. Sometimes it starts with a cup of tea and a handwritten card. So let's keep this space open for that kind of growth. Let's lift up the quiet builders, the late bloomers, the ones still finding their way. I'd love to hear your reflections. Drop a comment, subscribe for more stories like this. And if this one spoke to you, share it, because maybe someone else out there needs to know they're not alone in the quiet. And that being seen, it doesn't always come from shouting. Sometimes it comes from showing up again and again until your truth is impossible to ignore.